heart disease. But our first segment deals with Iraq and Afghanistan. Some facts. Iraq, Americans killed in that country, more than 4,000, wounded more than 30,000. The Iraq War, which lasted 8.5 years, cost nearly $1 trillion. Afghanistan, Americans KIA, 1,782. U.S. troops wounded close to 20,000. Cost of the war about $750 of $1 trillion so far. It is expected most U.S. forces will be out of Afghanistan by the end of 2014. Here now, one of the chief architects of the Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns, Dick Cheney. Let's take Iraq first.
Bill?
Big trouble there now?
Yes, there is, unfortunately, and I'm very concerned about it. What I see is that it would appear the level of violence has escalated significantly. The surge that President Bush put in place in 07 and 08 was very successful, reducing the overall level of violence, getting the Sunnis to buy in, and the reawakening, if you will, out in Al-Anbar province. But there was never the follow-on agreement negotiated, which was always the intent and which we thought we had set up at the end, but the Obama administration didn't pursue it.
And they didn't pursue it because the Iraq authorities wouldn't identify Americans. They wouldn't give them... They wanted to try them themselves if any misbehavior or any accusations. I think that's what the deal fell apart over.
Well, but we have that debate in every country where we've negotiated those agreements, and we've got them all over the world. It's always a question of sovereignty. We always insist on retaining jurisdiction over our people.
Absolutely, as we should. Right.
As we should, and that's exactly what we did in this case. It takes some persistence. You've got to stick with it, but they never stuck with it. They just walked away from it.
All right, so you feel that they could have gotten a deal about the indemnification?
I believe indeed they could have, and the stay-behind force isn't a combat force, similar to what we had there before, but it's there for training. It's there to provide capability they don't have, logistics, intelligence, medical, and air
so you think the Obama administration just wanted out of there and the hell with it?
Exactly, and we're paying the price now. The Iraqis are paying the price now.
What did we get out of Iraq, though? I mean, as Americans, we're all in it together. We're all in it together. It's easy to finger point. They finger pointed you and Bush, and I don't want to do that. But we spent $1 trillion on this with a lot of pain and suffering on the American military. What did we get out of it?
Well,
beside Saddam being out of there, what?
But remember what we were faced with in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. We had a lot of evidence to indicate that, in fact, Al-Qaeda was trying to get their hands on weapons of mass destruction. We had in Saddam Hussein a guy who had produced and used weapons of mass destruction.
Okay, all of that, and I supported it. And you know, and I don't blame you, Vice President Cheney or President Bush, for doing what you did. I mean, I'm not back Monday morning quarterbacking. But what right now? What do we get out of Iraq for all that blood and treasure? What do we get out of it?
What we gained, and my concern was then, and it remains today, is that the biggest threat we face is the possibility of terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda equipped with weapons of mass destruction, with nukes, bugs, or gas. That was the threat after 9/11, and when we took down Saddam Hussein, we eliminated Iraq as a potential source of that.
Al-Qaeda in Mesopotamia is back?
That's right, but they wouldn't be if they'd followed our policies that we laid out for them when we left.
Okay.
But also, let me finish.
Sure.
In terms of what we got out of it, we took down Saddam as a major source. 5 days after we got Saddam, Muammar Gaddafi announced he was going to surrender his nuclear materials, and he had centrifuges, he had a weapons design, he had the uranium feedstock, and after we took care of that, we took down A.Q. Khan, who was his major supplier. The father of the Pakistan program, and was running a black market operation. We've put him out of business. We got rid of 3 major sources of potential proliferation of nuclear weapons. Very important.
Okay. But right now, Iraq looks to me, and this is the headline in Washington Post today, nearly 2 years after the U.S. troop withdrawal, Iraq's in the midst of a deepening security crisis as an al-Qaeda affiliate wages a relentless campaign of attacks. So while you're correct in the bigger picture, I don't know if the suffering and blood was worth it.
Well, we've got a major problem in that part of the world. It's not just Iraq. It's also danger in Afghanistan.
And let's get to Afghanistan.
And in Iran. The withdrawal of the United States from that part of the world has significantly diminished our capacity to influence those events.
In Afghanistan, you have a corrupt leader, Karzai. Would you accede that? Corrupt?
Corrupt, I suppose, is in the eye of the beholder in Afghanistan.
In your eye, then?
No, in Afghanistan, nearly everybody's got...
But in your eye, Karzai corrupt?
In my eye, Karzai was a guy who was there when we needed him. And who
but he's corrupt.
Years,
I understand you got to deal with bad guys sometimes.
I don't want to pass a judgment and say he's corrupt.
Is it okay if I do?
You can if you can.
All right.
Sure.
And you're not going to really come after me if I say that, are you?
Well,
okay.
I will. I'll give you a pass.
Now, it looks to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that once the United States pulls most of our people out, and we may pull them all out just like we did in Iraq, because Karzai is not cooperating on a lot of different fronts, the Taliban, with al-Qaeda's help, going to come in and make that country a chaotic mess.
Yeah. Not just Afghanistan. Issue of The Economist 2 or 3 weeks ago had a cover on it that said the new face of terrorism. And inside it showed a map of 10 different countries across North Africa, from Mali, Nigeria, all the way across,
right,
that are now safe havens or sanctuaries, if you will, places where terrorists, al-Qaeda and al-Qaeda fellow travelers can find safe harbor and sanctuary. Far bigger part of the globe now that's vulnerable to that kind of thing, training facilities and so forth, than we ever faced in the past. The U.S. withdrawal from that part of the world is significantly diminished our capacity, so that whether we're trying to deal with the situation in Syria or the situation in Iran, they don't pay any attention anymore.
Okay, so again, you have a policy difference with the Obama administration, is that you wouldn't withdraw, you'd stay. But by staying, we are paying so much money, and the suffering on our military people is so high. But again, we're all Americans, we're all in this together. It looks to me like the Taliban is going to reconstitute and cause so much trouble in Afghanistan, it's going to become a chaotic mess.
But the last time the Taliban took control in Afghanistan, they had bases that trained 20,000 terrorists.
And I think they're going to do that again. Don't you think they're going to do that again?
In addition to 19 hijackers who came here with airline tickets and box cutters and killed 3,000 Americans.
I got it. But aren't they going to do that again?
So what? We just sit back and don't worry about it?
No, but I'm asking you, if we're withdrawing and they're going to do it again, as it seems likely they will.
Very real danger of that.
What do we get out of it?
Very well, what do you get out of it if you withdraw and you let that happen again, Bill? We don't have the choice anymore, if we ever did, since certainly since 9/11, of calling back behind our oceans and saying, well, what goes over there doesn't matter to us. It matters a hell of a lot if there are a lot of terrorist bases, and there are more areas where they can be based than ever before, and if there's major proliferation problem of nuclear weapons, and that also is increased.
But that puts the strain on our U.S. military is unbelievable.
Well,
and on our Treasury. 17 trillion in debt.
That's right. But if we had a presence over there, if we'd been able to continue the policies that we put in place, if we'd been able to work to keep governments, established governments that are stable, willing to defend their own sovereign turf, we'd be much better off than we are. Now we're in a position where our adversaries no longer fear us and our allies no longer trust us.
Final question then, real quick, and then we'll get to your book. You're not optimistic that Afghanistan is going to be able to fight its own battles?
I hope they will be able to, but I don't think they will unless there's a small group of Americans there to train and so forth. And Pakistan's next door. Where did we launch from to get Osama bin Laden? From Afghanistan.
Right.
Where do we base ourselves out of in terms of keeping track of what's going on in Pakistan?
But you got the drones now that may be able to inhibit them a little bit.
Based in Afghanistan.
Right. All right. We're